These are 7 players you need to add immediately in fantasy football. Plus, stay until the end where I reveal 4 players that I think you should stash now to help you get ahead of your league. Starting at number 7, it's the Kansas City backfield that everyone's curious about, everyone's confused about. Here's what we know. Pacheco is set to miss 6 to 8 weeks to a fractured fibula. If you're a Pacheco owner, you're not happy, you're pissed, you're frustrated. Injuries are the absolute worst thing in the NFL. When it comes to fantasy football, we hate it, but all we can do is figure out how to best approach the situation, how to attack these running backs, and that's what I'm here to help you do. Before we talk about Steele or Pirine, my prediction is that Kareem Hunt is going to sign with the Kansas City Chiefs, because why would he not? He's a former Chief. He has familiarity with the system, with the scheme, with the offense, with Andy Reid. He's 29 years old, so he still is not a complete wash of a player. I know his yards per carry last year behind a good Cleveland Browns offensive line wasn't great, but it's such a good offense that I don't think it matters. I think if Kareem Hunt does get signed, probably the first week he's not going to be active or he's not going to be very effective, but he's going to grow into this offense. That would be my prediction if Hunt is added. If Hunt is not added, we know Steele is a rookie running back, fullback, I guess you could call him as well. But he's not a slouch of a runner at all. His sophomore year at Ball State, 1,500 yards, 14 touchdowns. He can carry the load. He's a bigger running back. He's a young running back. So we know that he's probably going to be the early down grinder for Kansas City. And then Samaje Perine, who's also a big back, is going to be more of the third down back, the pass catching back. He might be the guy who they use in more high value situations in the red zone and potentially on the goal line. Like I said, because he's not this small scat back. He's also a big back that can punch it in from 2 yards out. So it's going to be really tricky as to who really is going to emerge. We did get some information from Andy Reid when they talked about who's going to be the workhorse back. He kind of alluded to Steele being the guy that's going to have to take on a bigger role. So that's kind of interesting. That's kind of conflicting to what I thought was going to happen. As Pirine is a more trusted back, he's not a bad back. He still has some juice left in the tank. So let's say Kareem Hunt comes in for a visit and doesn't sign, which I don't think is going to happen, but let's say he doesn't. Then it's Carson Steele, Samaje Perine. Who do you put your chips on? I think it's going to be messy. I don't think anyone is really going to emerge here. I think it's going to be a sticky running back by committee, but we know the roles. Steele is going to be the short yardage, grind it out type of back, and Perine is going to be the third down back, pass catching back, used in probably more of the high value situations. I would prefer Perine because of his pass catching ability. They seem to really like him. He can also punch it in from a couple yards out, so he could steal that role from Carson. I don't really see a world where Carson Steele is the third down back for Kansas City, so that gives Perine a little bit of the edge. But in conclusion, you're not going to put a ton of fab. I don't think it's smart to put a ton of fab on either guy, because what if Pacheco comes back sooner? What if he's back in 4 weeks? We know Clyde Edwards-Helaire is eligible to come back in week 5, and then we have Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Kareem Hunt, Carson Steele, Samaje Perine, and then eventually Pacheco. Like, it's an absolute disaster. I'm sure one of those guys will not be on the roster, right? But it's messy. I don't think any running back really emerges. I'm the most confident on Kareem Hunt, which I understand if you have to put your waivers in tonight, Tuesday night, and we still don't know if he's signed with Kansas City, then I would lean Perine. I know Carson Steele could be the goal line guy. He could rack up some touchdowns, but I prefer to bet on the veteran who can also punch it in from the goal line, who's going to have that pass down role. That would be the guy I choose. I know it's tricky. This is a situation where don't dump your fab all on one guy because we really don't know how this is going to shake out. At number 6, Braylon Allen took advantage of his little opportunities on Sunday, scoring 2 touchdowns, 1 on the ground, 1 through the air. Here's the deal. I can't see Allen earning a significant role on this offense, but he's a player that the Jets clearly trust. They can use him on the ground, use him in pass protection, use him through the air. That makes him valuable. But in week 2, Allen only saw 9 touches compared to Breece Hall's 21. So if you're a Breece owner, there's literally 0 reason to be concerned, 0 reason to panic whatsoever. Will the rookie running back continue to score touchdowns at this high of a rate? Absolutely not. Could he continue to see anywhere from 5 to 10 touches a game? Sure. Right now, Braylon is nothing more than a elite handcuff that if something were to ever happen to Hall, he has league-winning upside. These are the guys you want to stash on your bench maybe this is more of a stash, but with how well he played, I'd be looking to add him. And if you have room to put him on your bench, absolutely do it, because you want to bet on these talented running backs in good situations. And if anything were to ever happen to the starter, they could be tremendous for your fantasy football team. At number 5, Hunter Henry is coming off a career game, 8 catches, 109 yards on 12 targets, 18.9 fantasy points, along with an absurd 44% target share, and he ran 88% of the routes. Here's what I'll say. Don't get too carried away, especially because Henry's a tight end with questionable quarterback play on a questionable offense. We know the talent that Henry has. It's not like he's some rookie that has this untapped potential. I think Henry's a nice player, but he's not like this league winner that you should be so aggressive getting on your team. I think games like this are going to be few and far in between, hard to predict. So while this was a nice performance, like if you need a tight end, I would throw like 10 to 15% max on Henry, because I think he has a nice connection with Jacoby Brissett. He's a reliable option in this passing game, but don't get too carried away with your fab. And he's a tight end. Like, he could have 3 catches for 40 yards next week, and no one would be surprised. So while this performance is really nice to see, go get Henry for a couple of dollars if you really need a tight end. At number 4, Tai Chandler. Chandler feels like a guy you want to get on your team now for cheap before he blows up, because he led Minnesota in rushing in week 2 with 82 yards on only 10 carries compared to Aaron Jones, who had 9 carries for 32 yards, and he fumbled on that reception in the red zone. And Aaron Jones is an older back, 29 years old, entering his age 30 season, who already got banged up in this game as he's very injury prone. He also has an extensive injury history with hamstrings. Like, he always seems to be hurt. So if you want to bet on a guy who's really explosive, dynamic, young, talented, fast, on what's looking like to be a pretty good offense in Minnesota, that guy is Tai Chandler. And we know Chandler is also a nice receiving back. I know they're not using him in that role right now because that role is reserved for Aaron Jones, but if Jones were to ever get hurt, Tai Chandler would be an RB2 with RB1 upside. And even if Aaron Jones doesn't get hurt, I think this split is going to become closer to 50-50 as the season goes on. Maybe they don't want to give their veteran running back as much wear and tear. Tai Chandler is a really nice weapon. He's an underrated weapon for this ascending offense. And Chandler is a guy that I think you should be pretty aggressive with getting on your team if you need a running back. And he's a guy that his role is going to continue to grow. And I like his overall upside with or without Aaron Jones. At number 3, Alec Pierce is off to a scorching start in week 1. 3 catches for 125 yards and a touchdown. Week 2, 5 catches for 56 yards and a touchdown. Pierce runs more of those go routes, more of those deep routes that Anthony Richardson loves to throw and that he's really accurate with. So I think that's kind of part of the reason why Pierce is thriving early on, is because they're connecting on some of these beautiful deep balls from Richardson. It's kind of felt like Pierce is the more preferred target for Richardson, but with Josh Downs potentially returning in week 3, he's going to take over the slot, which shouldn't really affect Alec Pierce's role on the field. He might get less targets, but it's going to more so affect A.D. Mitchell, who's probably going to get moved to the bench. So I could see Alec Pierce continuing to have a role, but I don't have a ton of faith or excitement going forward because Anthony Richardson overall hasn't looked that great. We know this team is going to want to run the football a lot. And with Josh Downs assumingly going to be healthy soon, Michael Pittman Jr. still on the roster, we know he can command a lot of targets. Pierce feels like a boom or bust guy for me, but if you're in a deeper league and you need a guy that could really blow up and continue to stay hot, then go after Alec Pierce. At number 2, Jordan Whittington, the rookie wide receiver for the Rams, with Puka Nacua on IR, Cooper Kupp injuring his ankle. Not good. Could we be looking at Puka Nacua 2.0? I'm having flashbacks. I'm having deja vu with Jordan Whittington, who played every snap in the second half once Cooper Kupp went down. And Jordan is the guy who I assume would take over that Cooper Kupp role on a wide receiver friendly scheme in LA with Sean McVay, attached to Matthew Stafford on a team who we know is going to want to continue to throw the football. I like Jordan because he's this untapped rookie that we haven't really seen. He's got a lot of potential. What we have seen from him in a limited role looks very similar to kind of what we saw with Puka Nacua early on. Yes, he hasn't erupted like Nacua did, but now he has the opportunities to potentially do so. If I had to choose between Tyler Johnson, Demarcus Robinson, and Jordan Whittington, I'm taking the rookie Whittington. I think he is the most upside. We know what we're getting with Demarcus Robinson. Tyler Johnson looked good in week 1, but didn't really see much in week 2. I'm betting on Jordan because of what I think his role is going to be, what I've seen from him already on the football field, because of his age, situation. I think he's a guy who could absolutely explode if given the opportunities, which we already saw. He's going to be given a shot to see a large role. So if you're in a deeper league, if you really need a wide receiver, I have no problem making sure you get Whittington on your team. I don't think he's going to be Puka Nacua 2.0, but his situation, his playing style, his opportunity is just very similar. And at number 1, Quinton Johnson. It's crazy how fast things can change in the NFL. Johnson went from a guy where everyone was writing him off. His career's over. He's a bust. He stinks. And to be frankly honest, I was kind of one of those people. Everything that we saw from him, like, he just looked terrible. But I think I was wrong. I think he's a guy that just needed the confidence. And once he gets that confidence in himself, he has the ability to absolutely erupt because of his playing style, his talent, his situation. Like, I love Ladd McConkey, I really do. But Quinton Johnson is also another guy that has all the talent, the skill set, the frame, the speed, everything that we look for in a wide receiver. He made the most of his opportunities in week 2 with 5 catches, 51 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Part of those opportunities came with Josh Palmer leaving the field due to an injury. It feels like Palmer is always hurt. He's always questionable. He's always dealing with the knee injury. I don't really want anything to deal with Palmer. If I'm looking for Chargers wide receivers, it's Ladd McConkey, who is not on the waiver wire, and it's Quinton Johnson, who in week 2 led the team in routes run, target share, targets per route run, along with 2.68 yards per route run. Those are all really good metrics. Those are all really nice things that we like to see. Yes, Johnson does have some tough matchups on tap. I'm really encouraged for his rest of season outlook. I think he's going to be unlocked. He got the taste of success, the touchdowns, the confidence boost that he needed. He could be really good down the stretch. Now on to a couple guys that I think you must stash. I said I have 4, but we're going to throw in a bonus. I do have 5. It's Blake Corum. Everyone's going to kind of write him off after he didn't play in week 1. Didn't do much in week 2, but he looked pretty good on the ground in week 2 in his limited opportunities. Yes, it was a blowout against the Cardinals, but I want Blake Corum on my team. I want him on my bench because if Sean McVay starts to feed him more or Kyron gets hurt, Blake Corum would be a league winner. Second guy, if he's available, is Bucky Irving. I know I talked about him on the week 1 waiver wire segment. If he's available, get him on your roster. Rachaad White had that groin injury. He was able to come back. It doesn't sound like he's going to miss any time at all. But Irving will continue to carve out a role for himself on the ground. He looks like the better runner. Rachaad White is a pass down specialist and nothing more. Irving carries a lot of value with what he does on the ground. And if Rachaad White were to ever miss time or Tampa Bay wants to get Bucky more involved, he'd be a very nice flex. Jalen Wright for the Dolphins, I would also want him on my bench. Yeah, he didn't do a lot in his opportunities in week 2. Yes, Achane blew up, but Wright is still in a good situation on a good offense that if something were to happen to Achane, you're going to want Wright on your team. Next guy would be Cam Akers because we don't really know what's going on with Joe Mixon. That ankle injury, yes, he returned, but in a limited fashion. I would not be surprised if Mixon misses a couple of games, making Akers a nice spot start on an elite Houston Texans offense. And lastly, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, just because there's so many question marks with this Kansas City backfield. I have no problem adding him if you do have an IR spot. Throw him there and then wait and see what happens. That's all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, if you took away anything from this video, if you could please subscribe to the channel, like the video, it helps me out more than you know. Thank you again, and I will see you in the next one.